And now that we've heard the tremendous talk by Congressman Amash, and we heard about some of the interesting things happening in the Republican Party here in the county and in the state, our next speaker will be DeBacker. And as I had mentioned earlier, she's done phenomenal work on tonight's topic, which is Common Core. Sometimes it was been called Obama Ed, but she's really been dedicated to it. She spent years studying it and explaining it, and she has a really wonderful presentation. And between her and the Irvines, this is going to really be something. So how about a big round of applause for Deb DeBacker?
In the nation that has achieved that, and it's because of the grassroots people pressuring. That's the only reason we've got that far. And of course, because of the great work of State Representative Tom McMillan, we would not at all. There's no one else who has championed this cause other than him. As you know, he has announced he's running for state senate, and it would be in Bloomfield, Birmingham, too. So, Justin Amash Jr., you would love to have for your state senator. Okay, so I need the keyboard too. So we have this flyer here that has what you need to do next. We have tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we have hearings in the House Office Building, room 521 from 9 to 11. Unfortunately, the other side is the only one that would probably be allowed to speak. People from Achieve and State Superintendent Flanagan. So I appreciate you taking another flyer so you know what you need to do for us next. And if you can attend any of our hearings, they're listed on our website. Based on after I'm doing all this, the stated goal of Common Core is supposed to have kids ready for college and career ready by 2015. But that's really basically community college when you start to study it. But I don't think that the goals are that. I've seen Professor William Swint from MSU. He testified on Tom's original bill against Common Core, and he said the goal is equity. And local control, he says, is insane. So if you want to achieve equity, you have to set that bar pretty low enough for everybody to pass. And with our state board sending on to the federal tests, we are going to test anything higher than that low bar. So I believe the goal of Common Core is social justice, equity, control of what is taught in the hands of bureaucrats at a national level, cutting out our parents, local boards, and state legislators, and the enrichment of the corporations that supply the teaching tools that our schools buy, not academics. So let's see if we can get started here. First of all, if anybody thought that President Obama and the current administration were just going to take over the car companies and oil and health care and skip education, no, not true. So this is a takeover of everything because of the testing. What I want you to understand is it's Common Core state standards. They're national standards written by a national organization with no FOIA ability, that kind of thing. National testing, federally funded tests our state board signed on to. Ours is called SMARTER. There's two testing consortiums. It's a pseudo choice. And so you end up, when you have your standards and your tests, they drive the curriculum. These standards are national. These standards, Common Core, if you look at them, they have appendixes with book lists and things like that. So teachers are not going to, if they're going to play it smart, they're going to use the books that are recommended. And then Race the Top is another term, but that's the grant that was in 2009 under American Recovery Act that drove a lot of this when the states needed cash. But we didn't win any cash, but we're still doing this. I wanted to tell you that this is not going to bring on political correctness in our education. It's already there. This is a sample, and I know you can't see it very well, but I can't zoom in on it here, but I have it in my briefcase. This was a 1999 MEP question that asked the kids if about a corporate jet tax that the president had proposed of $250 a flight to pay for a reading program. And the correct answers, multiple choice, you can't see it there, are this is an example of redistribution of resources, that's the correct answer, and equity. And so those words were even being used with our kids back then. This is not going to be anything new. But we're going to have less chance of getting rid of it because it's no longer in our legislators' control. There's another question. Women in combat. Give your opinion of women in combat. All the data in there, which you had to do well on in the rubrics to use the data, part of your answer, that's pro women in combat. So you have to write, it says take a stand even. And this is even in violation of state law, which says you're not supposed to test attitudes, values, and beliefs. So they were asking your kids this. We don't know where the answers went. Maybe Justin knows. Anyway, Common Core is unknown by design. Our legislators have the right to control education per the Michigan Constitution. But in spring 2010, the only notice they got was the State Board of Ed sent this simple letter to leadership. They had 20 days to respond. They didn't even know what it was. About 4 people in leadership got a letter. Common Core was not voted on by Congress. Our legislators, all done by the administration, the State Board of Ed, and funding. Race to the Top was a $4.35 billion federal initiative. And we, the State Board of Ed, gave away our control of education in 3 steps. First, they signed some contracts agreeing to Common Core. Just a few days, the final contract was just a few days after the June 15th standards were finalized. And then there was 09. There were no standards. They agreed to them. State Board of Ed signed on to federally funded and reviewed testing called Smarter Balance Testing Consortium of 26 tests that's based on Common Core. They have no control of what the questions are, the cutoffs, nothing. We've seen nothing in contracts that would give us any idea. They did have one or couple of people in on it, on the testing, I think, from the Department of Ed, but we don't know who. And in winter 2012, the State Board of Ed also applied for and received the No Child Left Behind waivers, where they were incentivized also there to implement Common Core. They are content and process standards. I can show you an example. It's skills, like Ms. Irvine presented to you before. They're skills, how to teach. So everybody in this country is going to learn how to analyze literature in the same way. They were never field tested. They are not internationally benchmarked as they claim they are. They can't find that. They keep changing the wording on their website to internationally informed, words like that. So we're not sure if that was ever done, even though they promised to. We adopted math and English language. Now you're saying that's pretty mild, but the further on in the language it says in history, social studies, science, and technical. So that means that they can ask some questions on those other subjects, because the English teachers are supposed to be teaching literature in those other subjects, so that would be open to questions. And then we also have the Next Generation Science Standards, which is not technically part of Common Core, but that's also going as a nationalized education program, and that is got the climate change and consensus science, that kind of thing. But again, we didn't win any money, and we're doing all this work. Charters are required to use Common Core since they're public schools, and parochial and private schools are teaching Common Core because they have to take the ACT and SAT tests, which I will explain later. Common Core standards are copyrighted to a non-governmental organization. Through about half the funding of their development came from taxpayer money, so they're federal taxpayers. Assessments are aligned to the standards and are developed by all those Pearson Achieve, privately owned, not accessible to our legislators. Pearson's chief advisor, Michael Barber. If you want a trip, go look him up. He's destroyed England's education system. The standards can't be changed. There's at least 6 documents that say we can only add 15%. So that some states are doing things like adding cursive writing. But they won't be tested because that's not part of Commons. You can't change them because it will no longer be common across the country. Correct? You've lost the goal of common. Well, where's proof that the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, unfortunately, is pushing Common Core? They received Gates money. Gates is the #1 pusher of Common Core, so that's what we figure why they're doing that. They also got Joyce Foundation money. So again, I want to review for you. We get these Common Core standards, and we have the matching assessments, resulting in the teachers having to teach to the test, which they have to do and to pass it. We have a longitudinal data system, which I haven't mentioned, and we get a nationalization of education. It's not state-led, as some will say, but it's special interest federally incentivized. Here's some examples. In fall 2009, Obama threatened to take away our Title I money if legislation in Common Core were not implemented. The Federal Department of Ed required Common Core to receive the waiver. Kind of they did. They gave you extra points if you used that instead of your own standards. And President Obama admitted in his State of the Union, 4 years ago we started Race to the Top, a competition that convinced every state to develop a smarter curricula and higher standards. Well, here's another quote from Secretary, I just changed my PowerPoint, I missed something there. This is a speech of Arnie Duncan at UNESCO, and he said almost all, before 60s, almost all policymaking education funding was at the state and local responsibility. The Obama administration has sought to fundamentally shift the federal role. So, yes, they are involved. Who else opposes it? Detroit News, RNC did a resolution against it, our Michigan State Committee, Heritage, AFP, Cato, Eagle Foreman, American Principal Project, those groups we trust. Michelle Malkin has great articles if you want to read some things in National Town Hall, in Town Hall. George Well wrote a good thing about that, and Stanley Kurtz of Fox, more and more. You can Google a lot of our conservative websites and read about it. Texas and Nebraska and Virginia did not do Common Core. In fact, former Texas Education Commissioner said back in 2009 that Obama administration is marching toward a federal takeover of the nation's schools. And why is this bad to have national standards? Because it's unconstitutional. There's a lot of federal law that's been passed since the 70s when even Henry Hyde and those people started to see that happening. It takes away control of education content and standards from the parents and the taxpayers, and even in this case Congress. The entire country will suffer if there are mistakes, and there's mistakes in these standards. I don't get into that, but there's even things missing like converting fractions to decimals. Things like that are missing. Teachers, unions, and other powerful special interest groups were part of writing these standards and are in control. AFT, NEA, Gates, former Clinton Department of Ed employees masquerading in the Achieve organization. 15,000 local boards are better than one, right? Local controls work for hundreds of years. Competition is good. And there's no evidence that national standards will improve anything. Some countries with national standards do better than the U.S. and some do worse. Canada and Australia, which are like us, they don't have that. And neither does little Belgium, that is usually a leader in international testing. So it doesn't make, that's not where the key to education is. It's cost and more bureaucracy. We never got Race to the Top money, but schools are spending millions on changing their curriculum, their teacher training, professional development, new textbooks, computer and online access. The national estimates by Pioneer Institute is $16 to $30 billion. California has just asked for an extra $1 billion in their budget for education and for Race to the Top. I estimate, and based on what other states have said and their population, we're probably about 500 million, but the Michigan Department of Ed claims there's no cost to them and the local districts will bear it all. But based on what other states are, that's what I would guess we are going to spend. Here's a list of all the progressives. First of all, federal intervention in education is illegal, so Obama's friends had to get to work with him and get them to front the idea. And we have AFT and NEA, writing and training. We have the Gates Foundation. They are the major mover. They have wanted national standards since the 90s. And their employees, Achieve employees, which is a mastermind of this too, all have interchangeable with all the Democrat Department of Ed employees. Their employees jump back and forth. National Government Association is a trade association. Nobody elects this group. 80% of the writing, they orchestrated the writing of Common Core, and 80% of that department they used was federally funded the year that they wrote them. Council of Chief State School Officers, same thing. Trade association, not all states belong to these. Bill Gates and Gates Foundation donated at least $200 million to push Common Core. These are some of the recipients. Jeb Bush, Chief for Change, that's why he was up in Mackinac last spring pushing. Fordham Foundation, Carnegie Corporation, National PTA got money, National Charter Groups. All of them you're going to see testify at these next 4 hearings we have this summer are getting Gates money. And so that's how it's fixed. We have Achieve is going to testify tomorrow. They were created in 1996 to help Clinton force outcome-based education. They have Linda Darling Hammond. She is a technical advisor. She's a friend of Bill Ayers. He wanted her to be the Secretary of Education instead of Arnie Duncan. Pearson Publishing and Gates are going to make lots of money on this. And we have Hillary Tucker and Soros Group involved. So we got to know whether these standards work, so we have to do testing, right? And otherwise we can't prove to the taxpayers how well their money is working. So these tests are called assessments. All our tests are called that now because they assess the whole child. And again, the Department of Ed gave $350 million to write these tests. So it's a federally funded test, which technically is violating federal law. We have Pioneer Institute has studies on that. It's going to be very expensive. We're going to go all to the computer, interactive, online, very expensive hardware. We have to improve the bandwidth. Already Oklahoma said with their rural schools they can't do this. There's just no way they can even get the fiber optics to the schools way out in places there. And it's also, you'll see, your bonds, a lot of them are for technical that are getting passed. That's why. Oh, and SAT and ACT are aligning. We signed a contract with Smarter. That's our group, called federally funded, and they're writing formative and summative tests. Eventually, they're just doing our year-end tests now, but eventually their contract says they're going to do weekly and monthly testing. And that contract also says it will include psychometric testing, which you guys can look up, but it's defined as a psychological and personality testing. It's needed to fill the data collection requirements. They want to see how they teach you if you end up to be a good worker. Smarter Agreement also mandates that we send anything on the test to the Department of Ed in Washington, D.C. So we need these state longitudinal data systems then to see if all this we are spending money on is working right. And so any state that wanted to receive funds back in 2009 for longitudinal data system, they had been getting money since the 90s, and CEPI is our department's acronym, to do this, but there had never been all these strings attached until 2009. And what it demanded that every state buy an identical system with identical data points. And there's this organization that's federally funded called the National Data Quality Campaign, and they monitor all the states to make sure they're getting towards their goals. These student level enrollment, demographics, everything from preschool through post-secondary education. They want to do this because the goal, they say, is to determine that education to labor. How are we doing? This is scary stuff. We have this longitudinal data system. We've received $19 million. It can track our citizens using a personally identifiable number. They're claiming not to use social security number, but they still have a personally identifiable number. The goal is found in some states. They're doing 400 different personally identifiable characteristics, biometric, psychometric, non-academic, bus stops, were you in the National Honor Society, how many times you go to the office, all this stuff. You can find this at the Department of Ed website. It's called the National Education Data Model. That's the goal. Then we have, and all this, even this next section, we find this on our state website, the Labor Market Workforce Data Quality Initiative. That's in 12 states, and we also are finding that on our state CEPI data collection. So that's the goal. Because the new goal of education is workforce training. You see that now. When you start reading the paper, you see that that's the wording. This is right from our state website. From a national's perspective, what they have to do. Provide data to researchers, interconnect workforce data systems, all those things. And putting this in the cloud, I don't know, after I listen to Justin, I have more and more questions about what they're doing with this. There's another thing, what the American Competes Act requires of our state of Michigan. Statewide identifier, yearly test records, transcripts, they send this out. the information, they make the excuse, they dump this information in this thing called the National Student Clearinghouse, funded by Gates, and they say, well, you know, we need to follow the kids. They're going to leave the state after college, so we got to find them and what they're doing in order to fill the data requirements. So how they did this is there used to be some good laws under FERPA, Family Education Rights Act, but the regulations for that were changed in December 2011. Arnie Duncan unilaterally changed them. EPIC is a group that's now suing for doing that, but basically they can give the records out for non-academic purposes. Parents used to have to give these rights. Then they can give also the data out to social service agencies and to universities to study. And again, you know, again we are questioning what is the information, is it identifiable, that kind of thing. They allow other agencies to share personal information with practically any government agency, even a private company, as long as it says it's education program. The other problem is testing privacy. Any of the data given to the smarter tests, what your kids answer, maybe like the Women in Combat question, that is to be sent under the contract our State Board of Ed signed to the Department of Ed. Here's more proof. Yeah, Arnie Duncan says hopefully one day we can look at a child in the eye at the age of 8 or 10, and you're on track to be accepted to succeed in a competitive university if you keep working hard. Do we have late bloomers? Do we have people that don't fit in, that maybe later they do? Sure we do. So then Bill Gates is into this. They talk about, and maybe it's wise for states to adopt a broader approach to identity matching. That way, people are upset about Social Security numbers. We'll do it in another way. See, such an approach that would be much easier. So he has these, luckily our state's not in his system, but Georgia and those are, and they are using Social Security numbers. Reuters even reported that. That's not a conservative news source. And then here's another one from our ed.gov speeches, again, of Arnie Duncan. There's much work to be done in linking K through 12 and post-secondary records. States also should be planning now for how to incorporate workforce data into their longitudinal data systems. Again, what kind of worker will you be based on what we teach you? So we know that progressives have been in control of our education for a long time, but this is, they're making, and all these corporations, I don't know, they just, Pearson, Gates, all those groups, Holton, every time they get the government to do these programs, they get some consulting fees, some of these guys, and they get to sell more textbooks and that kind of thing. So repealing Common Core is the start. We must reassert our ability of our state and maybe even our local school boards to control what's going on. We have 3 states that have paused Common Core, including ourselves, but this summer, of course, as you'll see from my flyer, we are, going to have these hearings, and it's going to be decided by October 1st. They're going to vote whether we keep it or not. We have every day more states have been adding anti-Common Core legislation. They don't come in session this summer. It's going to wait till fall. MEA Magazine claims there's not enough money. Education Insiders, which is the elitists in education, think it might be dropped. So we need you to do all those things on our flyer, asking your state rep and thanking them for pausing them, asking it to make it permanent. And we also need some Pupil Privacy Act information if you have a legislator who you think might help us out with that, so the burden's not all on McMillan, but we need some privacy acts too to perhaps help us out here. So there's all these things you technically always can do to help us out. And check out our Facebook, sign up for our emails, alerts, that kind of thing. And hopefully we can continue with your help. Okay.
How is this different from the International Baccalaureate program?
Well, this isn't technically part of UNESCO and international. That curriculum comes from Switzerland, and the tests get mailed back to Switzerland to be corrected. However, we have seen in some cases the No Child Left Behind waiver has differentiated diplomas, and there's some regulations in there, and we're getting the idea that because not everybody is at the same level, we're seeing that it's possible that we're going to see the differentiated diploma, and you'll get a regular diploma or a college and career diploma, and the elitist will have the IB diploma. We're also seeing other things in there about, like, if your teacher's really good, there's laws in there that say they have to move that teacher to a poor performing school to have equity in good teacher distribution. So there's, that's some of the things that people have said, but that's not part of IB technically at all. That IB is a contract your local school signs and with Switzerland.
Yeah, so I've kind of got really involved in the politics, working with local school board stuff, and I've become more and more aware of a lot of the things that the MEA and all those organizations do to pollute this education system. I think it's great what you guys are doing, but I'm becoming more and more frustrated because you can't stop any of this with the way that we're approaching it now. And when I say that, I mean you can't stop my teacher from giving me a bad grade on an assignment because I wrote from maybe a conservative perspective or something they disagree with. You can't, by doing this, stop them from saying things like, the American dream is something that you've been told and it's a lie. This kind of stuff isn't going to stop basic things from my school district. I'm 18 years old. I can't write in cursive because my school district decided not to teach that from us anymore. There's been a dumbing down of our education system and a pollution by liberals to convince people to be liberal. None of this stuff stops it, and it's sad because it's great that we're fighting to get these rights back to the states and local, but it doesn't matter who's in charge of it because either way it ends with me sitting in a classroom, and I just graduated, and it's persistent. I have a communist teacher who's telling these kids that the American dream is a farce, and they're believing it, and it's just
I agree. I agree with you, but do we have any hope of changing it if your answers to the questions are sent out, to somewhere else, to a data system? And I agree. I got my kids out of public school in the 90s, and that's what we have to do. But if we don't do this, we will never get to your goal. And I think another goal should be is teachers should not be going to education schools. We should change, if we could, to having teachers who major in their subject. So at least the math teacher is enamored.
To answer that also, though, I think right now you see there are parents that get involved. They can do battle with the school board. They can demand that they get rid of fuzzy math and that they have good math. They can demand that they get rid of whole language and that they have phonics. That can be done right now. Once Common Core is passed, that goes away. All the superintendents can all get rid of those pesky parents that care about their kids. They can get rid of them now because all they have to do is tell the parents, look, I can't do anything about it. Go talk to the NGA in Washington and ask them to change the standard. So, and you heard from Amash, he said that people are changing. So this at least allows locals and others to wake up and try to fight. Once Common Core is in, that ability is gone.
I want to clarify, I agree with stopping this, but the problem is afterwards. And I find that the liberals do a very good job of, if they lose now, they'll win in the future because you have a group of kids that are going to go out. Let's say we get rid of all this stuff and we win this battle. The next generation of kids are going to bring up similar crap like this and try to get it re-implemented in, and we're going to have to fight the battle all over again.
What's your answer? You got an answer?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of us have sat down, and I've tried to think of a solution to try to de-pollute the education system, because they keep preparing the next generation, and they try to do it to me, and they did it to many of my peers.
Oh yeah.
So that by the time we graduate, and maybe the conservatives win the current battles. By the future, they'll bring the same
It's
stuff
why
up
your
again.
generation all voted under 30 for Obama. I know,
Yeah.
because I've been tracking this. I had the 1999 meat test. But, I mean, right now, I believe people should get out of the schools, but maybe bringing them through regular math majors and that kind of thing, an actual history major, through the education school indoctrination might help, too.
I've taught public and private. Okay. I've taught on the public and private sector. I'm finding out that the public school is almost a lost cause. Not quite, but almost. I teach college prep students, and they want to learn from the old textbooks. The new textbooks that are coming in, there's no way, shape, or form you can give them an honest education with the new textbooks. I'm under the belief that public education may be that lost cause. We have to go to the private sector.
Unfortunately, though, our private schools are doing Common Core
Some
and
of them,
charters.
not all of them.
Well, they're getting Gates money, and they're doing. There's
Well,
very
I-
few like Hillsdale does not.
Maybe I missed something, but my understanding was that the reason public schools were going to embrace this was to get the funding.
But we didn't know because the State Board of Ed told them to do it.
Okay, so now how is this going to be imposed on the private schools and the homeschoolers?
Well, they're doing it. Their private schools and Catholic schools and Lutheran schools are doing it because whether they got Gates money or not, I will not know. But some charter school providers have told me that they do. And the other reason is because the ACT and SAT are going to be aligned to Common Core, so they want their kids to do well.
It might be.
Might be if they.
Like this is, yeah,
Right, we
they're-
need
they're-
to change this, Texas
Yeah,
and the
if
other
they're
states.
aligned, everything is really bad. So the more states that pull out, the less they'll be able to align the ACT and SAT, because we give money to U of M and these 16 colleges. Are they going to sit there and say, thanks for the taxpayer money, by the way, your kids are at a huge disadvantage because the ACT and SAT are what we gauge entrance in. So the more states pull out of this, the more hope there is.
Right.
And then-
Texas is a huge state that is not doing Common Core, so the rest of us jump on with them. They usually control textbooks.
And then is the way that it's going to impact the homeschoolers because of the
They
SAT
take the
and
test too. And a lot of Pearson has bought out a lot of the homeschool curriculums, and so they're switching to Common Core. Now the homeschoolers have to be really careful about what they buy.
Thank you.
Chris Clements has a question.
I have a basic activist type of question. Because I know some of the people in this room are not shy about letting people know if they disagree about something. Who are some of the Republicans that support Common Core that maybe some of the people in this room should take pitchforks and baseball bats to?
I can answer that question.
You trust Anson Nickerville?
All the state representatives, and none of them understood what Common Core was. Because it never came before a legislature and actually had a vote. So there's a lot of them that just don't understand. Now, Martin Howard was one of the 7 or 8 that stood with me in opposing Common Core to make sure that we hit this pause button was because of 8 Republicans who stood firm on it, but under intense pressure from the governor and everybody else. But they're truly uncertain. And this committee has members. I don't know if there's any other members from Oakland County. I don't think so.
Roger.
Yeah, Bill Rogers, seats of Livingston. But, I mean, this vote is going to happen for October 1st. The budget starts October 1st. I got the pause in for the next budget. So the pro-Common Core people want to unpause it and let October 1st begin to spend money on Common Core again. So the vote is going to happen between now and October 1st. So that's why your legislator, we need them to vote no on
I think that most of them are uncertain. So you need to put pressure on all of them, really. And the members of the committee are on my flyer, but you really need to put pressure on all of them because it's really hard to fight Bill Gates money, and the establishment of the Republican Party is the governor down there for Common Core. So it's the same as the healthcare exchanges. All of them need help.
Yeah. There's a hearing tomorrow, is that correct?
Yep, House Office Building 512 from 9 to 11.
How important is that we have a big turnout?
All right, ask the boss.
Well, I'm heading to Lansing after here to stay overnight so I can be there fresh and ready for the questions. Tomorrow is just Flanagan and this Achieve guide. We'll have our pro side. We'll make sure that there'll be opportunities for testifying. You can also bring written testimony. Tomorrow we've decided not to make it a big, 100 people there because nobody else will testify with these two. Let's understand the ground rules. We've got 3 more. And we can hold our own sessions like this and others around the state. Debbie and, in Indiana there were 2 moms that stopped Common Core, and I can't think of their names, but in Michigan we had 2 moms as well. Debbie DeBacker and Melanie Curtis crisscrossed the state for 5 months and laid the foundation so that we could do this in the legislature. Michigan is real important. We're the only one that's going to make a decision here in the next few months. If we move forward with Common Core, and start back up, it's going to really harm the movement because a lot of them, like she said, are part-time legislatures who can't do anything right now. There's a lot of activity in states like Tennessee and Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma and all these others that want to fight it, but their legislatures are out for the year. They start in January next year. And so if we can keep this going, if we get to October 2nd and there's still a pause, there'll be huge additional momentum nationally for the other states to say, okay, but if we ended up folding, then other states are going to say, look, Michigan kept with it. They looked at it and stayed with it, and it's really going to hurt things. So Michigan is like ground zero. Indiana's not going to decide for a year. They hit their pause button for a year. And Pennsylvania is for a long time. Michigan is like the place where all the national focus is right now in trying to stop Common Core.
Yeah, Tom, I would really want to thank you again for all of your hard work. And I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here, but when you're speaking with your colleagues about why they shouldn't vote for Common Core, you might want to bring up the fact that the reason that they have these longitudinal studies and this psychometric testing is that for young men and women like this that won't go along with what they're teaching, it'll be easier for them when they put them in the FEMA re-education camps to return.
Exactly.
Well, it all ties in with what Justin says. It's just amazing. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I wanted to remind that guy that was speaking about the attacks on the new students. America has an upper hand and a downer hand. The society here is an individual society, so everybody thinks a little bit, well, what's in it for me? So let me see my generation where it's going. The progressives don't think of that. They think in 100-year terms, hence the progression goes along because the agenda keeps on giving. It's the not any gift. I come from where that was a practice. I grew up on that. I've had red flags since I got here.
It's Marxism.
That is not only not good news, but even if a few people end up, I wouldn't say sacrificing. Please don't take it personally if I say that. I don't care about you. But I'm just saying that if just a few people say no, and the rest of us will get along, they won't care. They will plow along, and you'll end up just as the West did. The upper hand of America is you can look west and see what this destroyed. And it was the education that destroyed first. Then comes along all the areas of economy, politics, and everything you want. But unless you brainwash the kids today, you can't do anything tomorrow. So this is as crucial as it can ever be. So do not give up. If personal attacks come, they always do. But if more and more people get away, then is when they will stop. Unless more people get up and try to stop, and they'll just plow on. So, I'm sorry, it wasn't a question.
A lot of the sustainability is a private-public partnership. Most of that, in fact, I started studying the world World Economic Forum, which is held in Davos, Switzerland, every January, the end of January. And this is where all the world leaders come and all the elites come. And it started back in 1971 with Claude Schwab and his wife Heidi. And basically, he's a Marxist socialist professor from Switzerland. But we've got all of our top bankers that meet there, all multinationals, Gates Foundation. In fact, Gates is funding eugenics as well through vaccinations. He's into everything. And this all corresponds with Agenda 21, is that not correct? With the Common Core, going along with the depopulation, and also bringing people from the rural areas into the cities.
Well,
This is
it's
all
certainly a
meant to plan to destroy-
public-private partnership, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's crony capitalism where business hooks up with
Government to
And it's
get
all,
a
it was all
project.
developed in Davos, though, Davos, Switzerland. And that comes every year where all these leaders meet from all over the world, and they get in their little health forums and World Health and the food we eat from Monsanto. It's all one big deal. So
Right, and you can see
it's
that
not a
one-
real pretty picture. It's to really destroy our country.
Right, that one quote
They're taking
was
us
from
down.
UNESCO, so.
And then it's the elites. And a lot of our Republican Party are buying into this stuff.
Okay, like I said, they don't know, our legislators don't know what Common Core is, so there's no one to pinpoint. You have to work on them all.
I know, it's a very hard thing to do.
No one told them about it, so.
I'd like to say to the state representative and to anybody else that the real problem with the government today is that some stupid lobbyist lawyer and his buddies write the laws. They write the laws. And then they bring them into the legislature and they say, here's some donations, pass my law. And this happens all the time because Conyers himself said, I don't know what's in that health care bill. I can't even understand what it says. See, these people write these laws and then they pass them off to these guys and they just rubber stamp them and keep moving them down the road. That's the problem. The government is not running the government, it's somebody else. And they don't read these laws, they don't know what, you just said it, they don't know what's in them, they just rubber stamp it without even reading the darn thing.
That's probably what the State Board of Ed did, but in this case, the legislature didn't even, prior to January, didn't even know what they had gotten into.
We should have a law against people doing that. I mean, I thought that these people were supposed to be lawmakers, right? That means they're supposed to be looking at what.
But the State Board of Ed signed them onto it and didn't tell them, so they do have somewhat, but now they should be against it, you're right.
It's against the Constitution, period.
If this goes through,
It could go for
how about we defund education at the local level? Stop paying for education at the local level. Can that be done, Tom?
No.
If it's going national,
Our
hey,
state constitution requires it.
Yeah, we
I
didn't
know
get
what it
any
is.
money.
Everybody ignores all the constitutions when it's in their favor. The only law that they want to preserve is the Fifth Amendment, so that when they get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, they don't have to convict themselves.
Okay,
They're
well,
defying all the other constitutional.
well, I guess we could tell everyone not to take the test, but I don't know who said that, but,
Defund education, period.
sir?
If Common Core is implemented in Michigan, you mentioned something about homeschoolers. How much do they have to comply with this new law?
Common Core is already being implemented. Many of you have kids in school; they're already implementing it. But if you're going down the wrong road, you should turn around and find your way out. But homeschoolers are very free in our state. We have one of the best states for that. In other states, they have to take the state tests and that kind of thing. But we don't have that. But they still have to take college entrance exams, and a lot of them should be aware that they do take Iowa tests for their own sake. But now they should be aware of the fact that they shouldn't do that. But they do. They just would have to take a college
A
entrance.
little hope on that also. I see that the higher ed bubble is about to burst. I mean, we're already seeing it, but with technology and the internet, I think that tuition is going to come down dramatically. There's all kinds of ways to get educated. You can go online, you can take MIT courses for free, taking credit. You can take tons of them for free. I mean, I think that soon, you're not, I don't know how long, but SAT and ACT may not be the only thing that gets kids ahead. I think they can get a lot of skills that probably be certified, you probably have companies certifying skills as opposed to a 4-year degree is the only thing that certifies it right now. But I think there's changes, but I don't want to stop this fight. We still need to fight it.
Oh.
But I see a lot of opportunity. Don't lose hope in the future in that area.
Right. I mean, this is to me the most thing I fought for 25 years, and this is really important. As I predicted, all the kids would vote for Obama, but that's our next voters. That's who's going to be voting for your health care
There was another
when you're old.
another candidate that the young people like too, though. Ron Paul.
Yeah.
The smart
Well, I don't know. I would say the majority of them voted for Obama, though.
I think Marion had, but Marion, did you have a question?
You know, I think like one, and you probably already know this, but you know so much about this topic, Deb, but it's so large to get our brains around. It's like, I'm taking notes and I'll leave here and totally forget why I don't like it. It's like is it possible to come up with talking points, just simple, with the Medicaid expansion, I thought the signs they have out, ouch, Medicaid expansion hurts Michigan. It's simple, it's attention getting, but even just give them a few talking points so that we know what to write our legislators.
Well, I think on my flyer I have talking points. I have it. I don't know. I have it here somewhere, but you can get my flyer, and it has a lot of good talking points about how there was no cost analysis. It's not state-led. Those kind of
The main
things.
thing is that it's turning over our control. And the state superintendent planning admitted to me in writing that if we don't like a standard, we will still have to teach it. So, if we don't like a standard, we can
This
knock
one?
on the NGA's door. Please, for all 46 states, change the standard so that our kids don't have to learn the lattice method. They can learn, the standard algorithm for multiplication and not have to learn all this other very confusing, fuzzy math stuff. Or, the informational text. We want our kids reading good literature, not Obama's latest executive order, and that being a big deal. So, I mean, we are turning over that control. That's the biggest selling point that I see. And they acknowledge it. We are turning it over. And once you're down this road, they're not going to pull back because of one standard or the next standard that they don't like. They're going to say, look at all this stuff we're going to give up. No, we'll do it. We don't like it, but we'll do it. And we just become irrelevant. Boards, parents, legislature, it all just becomes irrelevant at that point. So that's my main selling point.
Will there even be a board of education?
Yeah. Why have a board of education if it's all going back to the
Well, that's what Reverend Michael Flanagan has said. Didn't he say that he really wants to eliminate local school boards? And now he said, but people won't go for that, so we're just going to do it with services. Also, Gerson Necker, former head of IBM, just wrote an article about how we should get rid of all local school districts except for some big cities and 50 states. So yeah, it is. And if you go ask a local school board member, they'll tell you they don't have much power anymore. They can't even pick them
If I could
in.
add one thing, which Michelle Reed came in up at Mackinac, and she said something I think really epitomizes what we're going against. She and Jeb Bush were there tallying around, and she said, look, I hear people are concerned, her quote was, it's in the Detroit News, I hear people concerned about national curriculum and then taking over. What we should be concerned about is China's kicking our butt. Well, China, what's the latest innovation that's come from China? I mean, they have nothing.
Chinese food.
They steal our stuff and copyright stuff, but what makes America great is all the other things, not just being able to fill in bubbles, but it's all the arts that are going to be gone, all the creative, all the innovative things that we do, which is all gone with smarter balance. If it's not on the test, they're going to get rid of it. You're already seeing a lot of schools getting rid of, the arts and getting rid of all kinds of other areas. And it's just going to continue that way. And so that really epitomizes, to me, that's what she wants. She wants us to become like China because they're kicking our butt, quote unquote, because they can fill in bubbles better with high stakes tests, where innovation and creativity is what has made America great, and that's being gotten rid of with Common Core.
What a great note to end on. I want to thank Debbie DeBacker and Tom McMillan. You're welcome, Deb. That was phenomenal. We knew it would be. Now, I have a question for one of our audience members here. Because one of the things that came up in Deb's presentation was that states are not complying with this really bad, immoral, and unconstitutional and unlawful attempt to federalize education. So I'm going to ask my good friend Shane Trejo. Maybe he can help me as I'm getting older. My memory, But there's a great word they use. I think Thomas Jefferson called it the rightful remedy. When states don't comply with unconstitutional federal initiatives. Shane Trejo, what do they call that?
Nullification.
Nullification. Yes. And that's a great thing, and you can all read about it at the 10th Amendment Center website. Among other things, great things happening there. And Shane is our leader for the 10th Amendment Center here in Michigan. And so that's wonderful. I'm pleased to be able to work with him. A round of applause for Shane Trejo. This was really...
Hey, do we have announcements?